is my Minnesota State Fair 2012 journal, and I've taken a long time to post about this. It's already January 2013 because I couldn't figure out a way how to say what I wanted to say chronologically without writing a novel. So the easiest way to do it is to just show you in a quick little video, and I finally worked out how to do that with a new camera in a format that I can use. So that's what this is today. I made 2 books like this. I think this must be about 7 by 9 inches. And I made it with a depression in the cover so that I could put this label in. It's a laminated print of one of my pieces of spin art. I like to do that somewhere decoratively on the cover of my bound State Fair journals, or on the cover of the boxes if they're loose pages that I do for that particular year. I made 2 volumes like this because I had hoped to go twice, and one slightly smaller than this, but I didn't want to make a big thick journal. I wanted to have 2 smaller ones. As luck would have it, family issues and whatnot, work required that I not go to the fair as much as I usually do, for as long as I usually do, and so I didn't get both of those filled. I only used one, and that's okay. I used a discontinued drawing paper, which I still had some pages of. This is inside the dates when I went to the fair, and then the volume number. This is volume M for the year 2012. You can read about how I index my journals on my website. There's a page about that in the left-hand column of my journal, or of my blog, rozwoundup.typepad.com. I'm reaching around the tripod, trying not to bounce the image, so I hope you'll bear with me. Stuck-in things happened that night when I got home. This is my ticket. I was working with the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist's calligraphy pen and some Daniel Smith watercolors throughout this book, using a Niji water brush. This is my first visit, trying to get used to what's going on, get acclimatized to the barns, the noise, hustle and bustle. For this page, I wanted to loosen up. I used an gouache light black ink pen from Pentel. So it's sort of like a pocket Pentel brush pen in the sense that it has ink already in it, but the ink is light black. And so you can layer it and get darker and darker tones. It's kind of fun. It is waterproof. There's a pigeon. I always like to go on one of the early days of the fair so I can see the pigeons. Some more gesture sketching. And one of the fancy pigeons. When he wasn't standing still and he was moving around, I would do rear of the head looks, and I actually restarted a drawing over here since it seemed like he was going to move, but he gave that up and returned to this position so I could finish my drawing. A lot of movement among the chickens, so I focused on things like the backs of their heads. And this guy wanted to stand still for me. They're in crates that at this particular place are about waist high or a little bit higher than waist height, so you're almost looking right at the chicken, maybe down a little bit. Some of the birds are double stacked, the smaller birds, and so then you might have to get lower down to actually see the birds on the first level. This same day, I made these notes while I was at the fair. Then I went home and printed these photos out and wrote these notes. Here's some pigeons, or a pigeon and a chicken that I take for reference to work on final paintings with my drawings also as information. This is the second day at the fair, working with the same materials, starting in the swine barn. A little bit of light coming in. Kind of pretty. Here's a goat. Went back to the gouache light black ink pen. I tried the Staedtler pigment liner, but wasn't happy with the line I was getting out of that. Went to look at the pigeons, and this pigeon really is this funky looking. They have a whole big nostril thing going on, and an elongated neck and body. These two sketches up here were all that was on the page when I left the fair that day. This photo and these notes were added afterwards. I started to draw, but somebody, well, the bird kept moving and somebody kept stepping in front of me. So this is actually kind of sad. It was kind of hot in the barn when I drew this at 2:10, and this chicken had just sort of buried his nose in the sawdust and was having a little nap. He has one of those flat combs. I forget what they're called. I took some panoramics. This new camera that I had with me would take panoramas. You could sit or stand in one point and then twirl yourself around, and it would take a panorama. These can be seen on my blog. I'll put a link at the end of this video. Okay, so then that's what was happening so far, but this is where it gets a little bit more involved. I was unhappy with how my drawings were going at the fair. I didn't get into my groove. I just was not happy with what was going on, and I wanted to do something to sort of juggle things up. And so that night when I went home, or the next night, I guess it is the 27th, I put some of the photos that I'd taken from this year and the past years up on my computer screen, and I sat way back and just sketched as quickly as I could, as loosely as I could, just to sort of get a feel for the different animals. And I'm thinking, you know, is this something that I can try and do tomorrow? Is this an approach that I want to take? And I just really went through a lot of sketches, only a couple minutes at a time. Nice and big. This is in a Fabriano Venezia journal that I keep in the studio. It's too big. It's 9 by 12. It's too big for me to carry around. Here's a bunch of quick sketches of sheep. Just trying to get a sense of what happens with their face, where the eye is, and so on. Seeing what it is that isn't happening for me at the fair. So I'm looking for something. Then I decided to throw some paint on. And when I started painting this one, that gave me an idea that I wanted to be looser in my painting as well. And I did this bird study, and liked that. And then I took my page and I divided it up with masking tape and did a whole bunch of quick color sketches of birds, pigeons. And that's when I thought, okay, that's what I'm going to do tomorrow, is I'm going to divide my page up with little masking tape frames and see what happens. So with that background information, we can go back to this journal. And this is my next trip to the State Fair. This actually happens to be the 4th annual State Fair Sketch Out Day. And so there was going to be a meeting later in the day. But I went, and where these little boxes are, there was tape all around here when I showed up at the fair. I did that before I left home. And then I just got there and I looked around and I sketched as quickly as possible. Pig butt, pig head, back of pig's neck, pig face. just as quickly as I could, just sketching fast and with loose color. And I had fresh gouache squeezed out of the tube before I left home, and it was still gloppy and fresh. I was using that with a Niji water brush or with a flat. I had both with me. Cup of water if I was going to use a flat. So again, this was already divided up into 4 quadrants with masking tape. There's a piece of masking tape down here. I just quickly did sketches. I wanted to work as quickly as possible to bust out of the funk that I'd been in for the last previous visits. Gesture sketches of the bantam. They're very long-legged, short-bodied chicken. I love them. They look like little dinosaurs. In fact, someone said that. Yeah, it's a chicken and a flamingo combined, said an 8-year-old boy. But somebody else commented that they look like dinosaurs. Here's a sketch of one of them. They always look perpetually kind of pissed off, too. Gesture sketches of the chickens moving all around. I particularly like these quick sketches down here, this with the head tucked in, back view, preening. So again, working as quickly as I could. I changed pens here to a thinner pen, but the proportions were all off. So then I went back to the thicker pen and I got out that fresh gouache. Very quick sketch of a woman standing about a block away from me. Very high pants, capri pants with just tiny spindly little legs, and the way she was standing with her crutches just really struck me, so I want a little thumbnail sketch of that. And then there was meeting at 4:30, and I saved this page spread because I knew I'd be putting this photo in there. That's the picture of the whole group of us that showed up. There are a couple people that aren't in the photo, but that's most of us. And then on the way out of the fairgrounds after the meeting, I talked with a couple people till quite late, but as I was going out, I decided I'd try and do a couple more sketches since I'm walking through the buildings. So I stopped for this bird again. And I guess I just did one more sketch, because then these I put in that night. Photos of people that had been at the sketch out. I went once more to the fair in 2012, and this time I was again working with big globs of fresh gouache and also the Faber-Castell Pitt Artist's calligraphy pen, which I really like. And I was working as quickly as possible and loosely. Having the really fresh gouache was kind of nice because I could just really slather it on without worrying about the water reconstituting the dried paint. So that was quite fun. I could also use it really lightly if I wanted. This is probably my favorite painting from that day. It was the last one. I had them stamp my book with the return stamp that they put on your hand if you're coming back. I had them put that in my book. And then at night, that night, I wrote a little bit about the experience, put in a photo of that last sheep that I'd drawn. I didn't draw any of this Malaysian chicken, but I did take some photos of it. He was not standing still, and he was a pretty aggressive bird bobbing all around, but I did take some pictures of him. This is a photo of my book, the way it looked in the morning when I took it before well, after I drew the pictures, but you can see the tape that I had on when I went to the fair. And then I drew these very quickly at the fair. But that's how all those pages with frames had tape sticking up around them like that. This is my spin art for the year, and you can see that also on the cover. And then there were a couple pages in this that didn't get filled this year. So that's the chronology and the cycle of my 2012 State Fair sketchbook. A couple false starts, and then I finally did get into a groove with something that I enjoyed doing. Thanks for watching.